people always say that's the joke about LA. Everybody's like, yeah, the weather.
No,
what else?
There's no cider mills to get apple cider donuts. That is my biggest gripe with LA.
I just like drink up the seasons and I think I would miss it.
She's like, okay, why don't we stand up and walk you to the back room?
Oh no.
And I have to carry my clothes out in a biohazard bag.
Oh my God. Welcome back, Julie.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Happy almost Friday. We usually record on Fridays, but today we're recording on a Thursday because I have a big day tomorrow. I'm going to be traveling up to sort of the upstate area for a wedding at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. So I'm not available during the day. So here we are recording on a day before. All right. So what are the updates from this week? Tell me something. Tell me something good about your week. Or not good.
I had a week.
Talk about what happened yesterday.
Was it
Yesterday or the day before? We can discuss it. I'll tell you what, I think that what happened to you could be very relatable to people because I remember when I used to get blood work done, how freaked out I used to be. So let's just talk about what happened to you. You went for routine blood work and what happened?
Yeah, because I'm seeing a holistic doctor. So I got blood work done and they request a lot more blood work than a regular doctor.
Okay.
We could have a whole episode about my holistic doctor journey too.
Okay, that's a good one. That would be interesting to people, I think. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I go to get this blood work done and I'm always prone to fainting when I get my blood work. And to combat that, I have my breathing techniques. I just keep my eyes closed. I do all the things to ensure that I don't faint.
Right.
I went and plus I had to fast for like 12 hours, but I ended up fasting for longer because of just like things. So I was almost on like a 24-hour fast, it felt like. And I go to get this blood work done and they're taking the blood and it's a lot of blood and I'm breathing. I'm doing great. It's in one of those Quest labs. So the seat I'm getting my blood taken in doesn't recline. It's like a static chair. And after I finished the blood work, I opened my eyes and right in front of me is the little basket of all the vials of blood she just took.
Got it. And
I just immediately closed my eyes and I'm already feeling really like lightheaded. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No." I don't even try to sugarcoat it. I'm like, not really, no. And she's like, "Do you need to lie down?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, why don't we stand up and walk you to the back room?"
Oh no.
This is where everything happens.
Not good.
I stand up. I put my arm on her shoulder. She's like, "Hold on to me." I wake up on the floor, covered in my own vomit.
Oh my God.
Passed out and vomited all over myself.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And I think I was out for at least like a couple of minutes.
Very first of all, I can relate to that. I can relate to that because I have been a fainter.
Have you ever thrown up?
No, I've never thrown up. I've never thrown up while I fainted. No. So I relate to the fainting part because I've always been very lightheaded whenever I had blood work done or needles. So that's always been an issue. But I've never proper fainted because during blood work, because I always know when the fainting is coming. So I immediately say, I'm getting lightheaded and I put my head down to get the blood back into my head, or I ask them if I could lie down. So, but I think that's probably where you get it from. The queasiness is maybe genetic or something. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, I think, get queasy when they have blood work taken. Yeah. So interesting for me is, what I just went through and having to have blood work regularly and have needles and biopsies and things in my back, spinal taps. That was really tough for me as a person who faints at needles. So I think number one, it toughened me up. But number two, when I go now to get blood work, even though it's like minor and just the usual check, I still have to focus, don't look, let them do the blood work without looking. I can't look. So no matter how many times you do it, you're going to have the same reaction probably.
I felt like I had been hit by a truck. Like I was out for the rest of the day. There was no recovering.
Oh, I know. I understand. It takes a lot out of you. Medical fainting is rough.
And now I'm like, how am I supposed to get blood work again? If I know that, how am I supposed to?
It's challenging. I think I'm going to have to come and hold your hand. I'm going to have to fly across the country when you get blood work done.
I hate throwing up. I will do anything to avoid throwing up.
Yeah.
And the fact that I did it
I
unconsciously, like
understand.
all over myself. The poor nurse was just like cleaning up all my shit. And she's like, oh, this is the best part.
Oh no.
She's like, let me get you a bag for your shirt and you can just wear your jacket. And I'm like, great. And because the like a blood work lab, she comes back with like a biohazard urine sample bag. And I have to carry my clothes out in the biohazard bag.
Oh my God. What a day.
What a day.
What a day. Okay. Well, that was your adventure this week. My week was a little different because I was in the city for longer than usual. And the reason is Tom had COVID. And so I couldn't go back to the beach house. I had come up for Halloween with Jonathan and to help my mother shop for a recliner. And having been up north, then he tested positive. So I didn't go back down to the beach at all. So I've been here for days in the city, just having city adventures and doing my thing and really enjoying it. It was really fun because it was the weekend of the New York City Marathon. So I got to go see the marathon. And of course, that was inspirational. Now I feel like I have to run the marathon next year. It'll be my 20-year anniversary. It'll be 20 years since I ran the marathon last time. That would be like my 20-year anniversary. Oh my God. It was so much fun though. It was so inspiring to be at it. So we'll see. But I enjoyed being here and that was fun. The other thing that happened this week, to follow up on our last week's discussion, because I did listen back to the podcast. And so those things that came to my mind that I was like, oh, I wish I had mentioned this when we were talking about the whole, what you're going to call is my pretend eating disorder, which by the way, it isn't, because I'm going to tell you something that happened now that I've been paying attention to this. But number one is one thing that you said last week was this idea of you have to run a mile to eat a cookie or run a mile to eat. I wanted to say that I've never connected exercise with being like, that's my reward to be able to eat, to be honest, because I know from running, like you have to run a whole run to have the calories burned for a cookie. So I don't really process it that way in a way. When I
beg to differ.
No, when I used to go running, you can differ. That's fine. But when
I know, I just have memories from childhood of you being like, I exercised twice today, so I get to eat dessert.
Really? I don't remember thinking that way technically. Oh, right.
Yes.
Well, that's a problem. I don't remember thinking that way because I don't connect.
You and Dad would call it double dipping.
What does that mean?
If you exercise twice.
Double dipping, we would exercise twice. Yeah. I love the double dipping term. But not because, now I can eat something.
Continue.
Okay.
Whatever.
I love
rewriting history.
Okay, that's fine. And maybe I am. But I don't think that I thought that way, but maybe I did. So just like it's helpful to have digital receipts now of things so that we can look back and say, oh, I actually thought that way. Okay.
I have the mental receipts.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, my progress on this plan of like doing the half portion thing, this is what I've learned from it. Number one, I actually have lost 5 pounds over the course of 2.5 weeks, but that's almost like a byproduct. What I have realized from doing this is not so that I'm not so rigid now. So in the beginning, I was like, I'm going to eat a half. It's going to be half. Now I just pay attention. And so, for example, we went out to dinner last night and I was like, okay, if I'm going to have bread, my dinner with the things, the salad, whatever, I didn't actually eat half. I said, I'm going to have my whole piece of bread. I'm going to have my whole dinner. And we shared a salad because me and Dad always share a salad. But my point is that I think prior, I might have said, I'm going to have 2 pieces of bread. And so I maybe am doing it subconsciously now because I'm being more mindful. And I think that is the trick, not so much cutting everything in half. So I'm not going to say I stand corrected, but I still think about it a little bit. So now Megan and I got together yesterday for our little coffee chat, our weekly coffee chat. Megan Lynch, who is our ad sales extraordinaire she's let's call her our digital marketing director. So she was doing ad sales. We had a meeting and I went and we got tea and a coffee. And when I went in to get it, and I was like, oh, they were like crulla donut things, whatever. They looked so good. And I was like, no, I'm not going to get it. And then I went, oh yes, I'm going to get it because I'm not depriving myself. So I got one and we shared it. And I ate it happily. And I was like, this is okay. So I want to prove to the point that I'm not getting something. I am eating what I want. And last night we had dessert. And they were great. Little donuts. You know, the donuts with the dipping sauce. So the point is, I think that I'm onto something. And like I said last week, I'm solving the diet crisis. At least I'm solving it for me, because I don't feel like I'm on a diet, but I'm actually, wow, look at this. I'm actually, losing a few pounds. And I know you don't have a scale. So whatever, we're going to talk about that. But I have a scale and I do get on it. And I'm just happy. That's my benchmark for progress. Okay. We can agree to disagree. Sound good?
Moving on.
Moving on. So that's the progress. All right. What do we want to talk about this week? What's the topic, Julie?
You tell me, because you're so excited about this.
I am excited about this topic. All right. Julie's not as excited as I am. I want to talk about lifestyle in living in a city like New York versus living in LA. And the reason I think it would be a relatable topic is I think, number one, a lot of people listening maybe don't even live in a major city. And so they don't even know the certain nuances of living in a city versus living in a suburb. And number two, I think because New York and LA are both big cities, but they're very different lifestyle cities. And I do think, let's say someone's considering moving to another city, maybe this topic would be something where they could tap into it and say, oh, I like that and I like that and that. So I probably would prefer to live in a city like New York versus LA or vice versa. So let's dive in. All right? Because you have the experience almost of having lived in both. You've never really lived here full time in the city, but you spent enough time here to know what city lifestyle is. Would you say that's correct? Okay, good.
Yes, yeah.
And I have spent more time in LA now because I call myself bi-coastal. So I'm always out there watching your comedy shows. I'm getting a sense of LA life. All right. So we both can talk a little bit on the topics on both sides. And you can tell me what you love most about where you live. And I can tell you what I love about being here. So let's start at the top. Okay. And I have a list of bullet points, which we're going to cover. But when I immediately thought of, as I was talking about the subject with you just now, I was thinking when I first moved to New York, some of the things that hit me so much on a day-to-day basis. For example, this is very, very silly. Taking out the trash. When I moved here and all I have to do is walk 10 steps to the little garbage room, put the thing in the chute and it goes down. And I never have to deal with barrels going out, barrels coming in. Oh, the barrels are disgusting because the squirrels got in them. That was a major, major plus for me. That was like, put it on the list of the things I love about living in New York.
Then all the trash is on the sidewalk.
True. It's a problem. But it's not a problem for me in this apartment right now.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with it in your apartment or in your living space. But then you go outside and you walk 4 blocks and it's like trash, 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 trash.
And this is true. And they do take it away. So there's days where there's no trash on the sidewalk.
When?
There is. I'm not always seeing trash. They have trash day and then all the trash goes away.
I know.
Listen, I could do a whole subject. We could do a whole podcast on trash because let's not. But I'm going to tell you when I was working in advertising and I had my intern Kelly. I don't know if she listens to this podcast, but one time we were talking about something and I just went on a tangent because she was I'm doing something with the garbage and I was like, Kelly, you know what just blows my mind? Where does all the garbage go? Like it suddenly overwhelmed me, and it's something that I think about a lot because we just throw it out and then we don't see it again, but it goes somewhere. And every single person living in every single house takes their trash and it goes somewhere. And that freaks me out a little. And when I saw that movie, WALL-E, I was almost never the same because it was like, this is my nightmare come true. I'm watching it in an animated movie. Blah.
It's interesting that you started on trash because one of the biggest things having lived for me in New York and then, living in Chicago and now LA is that there's both such clean cities compared to New York.
Nice.
Because Chicago has alleys. That's where all the trash goes. In LA, I don't know. It's clean.
Where does the trash go? Yeah, where does the trash go there?
I don't care where it goes. I mean, I can't. But I'm just saying.
Okay, but out of sight and is out of mind.
Okay,
it's not out of reality. I said we could do a whole podcast on the subject.
Let's get off trash.
Let's move on from the trash. I just remember it being a really, really major, like, wow, this is great situation when I moved here. All right, so let's start with weather and what you love about being in LA, obviously. Is because people always say that's the joke about LA. Everybody's like, yeah, the weather. Yeah. What else? Right? What do you think about that?
We could also talk about Chicago since I lived there. This could be a trio.
Oh, I like
because
it.
I've lived in both. The weather in LA after living in a city with seasons and cold, being in the Midwest for 8 years, the LA weather is fucking amazing.
Okay. It's a
It is
plus.
like the biggest selling point ever. It is so nice that it is November 9th and it's going to be 80 degrees today. And we're going to go play pickleball and we're going to go hiking this weekend. We might go to the beach this weekend.
Oh,
And it's November. And
you
the
love
weather,
it. You love it.
I love it. And I think it helps so much because there's more to do than just eat or drink. Whereas, especially in Chicago in the winter, sometimes we felt like we're just in the cycle of like eating and drinking are the only activities to do because it's so cold.
Ah, yes.
Those are the only options.
Those are the activities you go to eat.
Yeah. And like, obviously, there's tons of stuff to do in Chicago. There's museums, there's this, there's that, tons of stuff to do. But it just feels like everything, especially in the winter, which ends up being like 8 months of the year, you're like, oh my God, I'm just inside.
You're not active.
It's so refreshing to be outside and be able to eat outside in December. And I miss the seasons. It is hard around this time, especially in the fall, because I love the fall. There's not as much foliage. There's no cider mills within driving distance. Unless you want to drive like 4 hours, there's no cider mills to get apple cider donuts. That is my biggest gripe with LA, I think right now, is there's no apple cider donuts.
I have to say, I was, counterpoint to your point of loving the weather there. I love the changing seasons. I've never lived in Chicago, so I haven't had brutal change in seasons where it's painfully cold, right? But I love the foliage. I love the trees when they change color. I love when it gets crispy outside. And it's like yesterday when we had our little coffee sitting outside, it was like chilly and we had coats on and I do love it. And I think that it helps my mindset of like progress. Like we move from season to season where we get to change clothes because we can wear cozy sweater weather. We can wear cozy sweaters, and then we can wear like bundly, like
I'm
furry
wearing a cozy sweater right now.
I know you are. Well, your place is a little good for you. It's a little chilly inside, so it helps. But I don't know. I just like the changing seasons, and partly maybe because I'm postmenopausal. So of course, I know what it was like to be hot all the time and have hot flashes and be wanting to be out in a brisk cold because was the only thing that would help. So there's partly that I run temperature warm. So I like having the cold come, and I just love when the first snowfall comes, and I love everything about every season. So I just like drink up the seasons, and I think I would miss it if I was full time. I love visiting LA, and I love when I get off the plane and it's warm and sunny and it's wonderful. And I'm like, this is the life, but I would miss this. I would miss the seasons. I know I would if I lived there. So weather is a plus. And it's always the joke of people I've seen this on TikTok when people move to LA and it's like, the weather's great. And it's like, okay, give us something else. What else besides the weather? So let's move on. What else besides the weather? So weather does affect lifestyle. So talk to me a little bit the lifestyle, because the things that you do. I know you never were a hiker before. At least I don't remember you being a hiker. So did that really start? The hiking really started when you moved to LA, right?
Yeah. It's like the thing to do. I don't know. But it's like my ideal hiking setup because it's hiking along the coast and along the beach and you're getting ocean views. And that's like my optimal ideal hiking. Like I don't necessarily need to be in mountains and in the woods.
Right. And you don't want to climb too much, right?
I don't want to climb. I rather hike.
You're not Tommy's kind of hike. Let's talk about Tommy's kind of hikes. Tommy's hikes are aggressive workouts. We're sorry, Jenner.
I mean, but yeah, we hike a lot more because it's like a great way to be outside, a great way to get exercise, see the city, and it's fun sometimes.
And I will say you can do aggressive hikes there if you choose them, right? If you were a really aggressive hiker that wanted to do a lot of climbing, it's fun. It's
just nice to have like an outdoor activity that's not eating or like eating it, I don't know. It's like
good.
It's fun.
And your other activity is pickleball, which we know you do a whole set of your comedy set about pickleball. So that's fun. You're enjoying the pickleball life.
Yeah, the pickleball courts are a rooftop in West Hollywood.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's like gorgeous views of the
hills. Do you belong? Are you a member or you just can go?
No, it's like you can just sign up and you have to pay to reserve the court, but it's pretty cheap and fantastic.
That's
that we're
really
able to play
nice.
year round. Yeah.
That's really nice. So as a pickleball aficionado now, and you have a whole set on it, you're living like the fake retired life at the current juncture.
Mm-hmm.
When you play pickleball, you're like a retired person.
Yep, that's the
Living the
joke.
dream. That is the joke. Love it. All right. Any other activities?
Going to the beach, it's nice being able to go year round as well.
Good.
I know, like, it's not necessarily like you're gonna go out and tan in like January here, but just that it's an option,
right,
to like go for a walk or just even like be in the vicinity. I love the beach, so
yeah,
that's big.
that's good. That's a draw.
Bonus.
All right, so I'm gonna on kind of bounce off that on the city lifestyle with activities. Obviously, a little different. It's not hiking, but I do find that New York City life is a lot of walking, and if you choose to embrace it that way. If you're a person who likes to walk, you can get anywhere. I never would think about like, let me take a cab if it's like 2 miles away. But if I was in New Jersey when we lived in the suburbs, if something's 2 miles away, I wouldn't walk there. It wouldn't even occur to me to walk there. I would get in the car and drive there. Probably the same with you in LA. If it's 2 miles away, usually we get in the car and drive, right?
That's one of my least favorite parts about LA. When we decided to live here, I was like, we need to find a neighborhood that's walkable, because after living in Chicago and New York, I was like, I'm not giving up the walkability.
Yeah.
So we found
it really is nice.
It's really walkable. But yeah, it's like you have to actively choose to walk here or like exercise, whereas in New York or Chicago, it's like being active is kind of like ingrained into your day to day.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you have to go out and like people drive to go for a walk.
Yes. And so I'm just thinking, like, you drive to go to a hike instead of walking to the hike place, which maybe, I don't know if the hikes maybe are far, but like I would not consider getting in a car and driving to the West Side Highway and parking and then getting on going for a run or walk or getting on a bike. I would just get on a city bike and drive there, or actually walk over there. So I really, really, boy, this is going to be a tough one because I'm such a city lover that I almost have nothing negative to say about living in the city. I love being able to walk everywhere. I love the whole idea of when I go to get groceries, I don't load up 10 bags of groceries anymore. I go and I get like the 10 things I need and I bring them home, whatever I can carry. And sometimes I get too many things. I'm like annoyed. Now I have to carry and they're heavy. So I like that. From years of doing that, those Costco trips and getting 10,000 rolls of toilet paper and everything's in the basement, and constantly like you have tons of excess because you're nesting out there and you have to keep extra things on hand, because if you needed something, you'd have to drive to get it. And so I like very, very, very much like this lifestyle of just having what I need and a limited quantity, because it's like right down the block. I can just go get it anytime I want. And I love it. It's my favorite thing. I also, activities wise, sometimes people will say to me, oh, what should I do when I come to the city? What should I see? And the interesting thing is I have like a list of things I will tell them to go and do and see. But when I look at the list, the activity would be, for example, walk the High Line. So it's like go walk, see things. So it's seeing, using, that's why vision is such an important thing to me. Like I love the idea that I can go to the West Side and walk up the High Line, and there's always new art on the High Line to see. Outdoor art is everywhere. Walking, I would tell people like, go walk in this neighborhood, go walk in that neighborhood. So my activities that I suggest are usually to go and look and experience a thing versus go to do a thing. Does that make sense? So and then the other thing I love is, for example, the other night we had met an artist, Chris Anderson and I had met an artist on the street on the Upper West Side after we left a coffee shop, and we were talking to her. She was loading up these motorcycle helmets in her car. They were so cool. We're like, well, oh, what is that? And we immediately struck up a conversation. She's immediately following us on Instagram. And then she's been sending me her art shows on Instagram. So the other night she sent me one and she said, oh, we're going to be at the Oculus in this canvas room, whatever, come and see our art show. So it was so amazing that I could just hop a subway, go downtown, grab my friend Jackie, from Chatham, who now lives around the corner. We went down, we saw the art show, go across by the Brookfield Place, grab some dinner. The activities could be spontaneous, but very unusual. And that is something I love about it. It's just so vibrant and interesting. And the people, and they're so into it. And this woman was introducing us around to all the other artists, and she was showing us, we got to meet the model who was in some of the art, and everything to me is so stimulating and cultural, and I could just drink it up. I love it. I don't know. I know this is probably going to be a sales pitch for living in New York, and there's going to be things that I'm saying that people would be like, yee, no interest. But I just love it. I'm into it. It's so good. So good. And I just like, there's restaurants that are the neighborhood spots. You don't have to go to the trending. A lot of the restaurants are ridiculous because you can't even get into them. There's like the hottest restaurant and it's always trending. But now I have the app called ResX, where if somebody wants to give up a reservation, you can take their reservation and you have to go in as them. So I have that app, and I've been looking at that to see if that's worth, if you want to get into a hot spot, you might be able to get into one at the last minute. So that's fun. I don't know, so many things, and just going to see the New York City Marathon and being at an event like that and being with people. Anyway, let's move on to the people. Okay. While we're talking about this. So the people of New York versus the people of LA. Do you see a difference? You've been to both places. Do you see a difference? Do you feel a difference? Ooh, silence. Thinking.
I don't know. It's kind of hard because I've met a lot of people out here that I feel like are very East Coast minded.
Oh.
But that live in LA.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that.
So it doesn't really feel like I haven't really met, like most of the people I've met here, made friends with
are
all transplants.
Yes.
I haven't really met any like born and raised Los Angeles, LA people.
Right.
Because they're all, I feel like, very ingrained in their own. So it's like all the people I've met are transplants. So it's like people from like the Northeast, people from like Texas, people from like the Midwest. Like I've met people from all over versus, so it's kind of hard to say if like, I don't know, the vibe of like LA natives. It's kind of hard for me to like give a grasp on it.
Right. We don't really know. You don't really know them. I'm going to have
to know any native LA people.
I'm going to have to think about if I know any. I know my music guy. Well, Mike Schmidt, our music guy, he's from.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say you don't know any native New Yorkers. And I was like,
oh, no, not native. I know. I'm saying for you, native LA people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Mike lives out there, but I think he's more in the Pasadena area, so not in LA, but still West Coast. But it's not like you're hanging out with him and seeing what the difference in the vibe is.
No. And everyone I've met is like a transplant, essentially. Yeah. So I feel like I vibe with the people that I've met because they're transplants and maybe they're not like typical like LA Valley people.
Yeah, you haven't really met them.
I don't know.
Well, that's funny because I mean, do I know a lot of native New Yorkers now that I think of it? I mean, I'm not hanging out with anybody. Dad's a native New Yorker, but he lived in he lived in the suburbs for 20 years or 30, you know what I mean? So we lived
but he's like from New York.
Yeah, he's from New York. And so let's talk about this a little bit because this is very telling. So when I go out and I shoot my TikToks on the street and the New Yorkers are oblivious. We are, in general, New Yorkers go about their business. They don't care what's happening and then just walking on by. And my gosh, even last night we were walking home from a restaurant and a girl dropped down onto the pavement. I thought she hit her head. And me and Dad just stopped. And we were like, oh my God, is she okay? And we walked over to her. And at that point, another woman walked over to her. And this girl was very, very drunk, like to a scary degree. She couldn't even stand up. So the woman was helping her up. And me and Dad, I mean, I think most people would have just kept on walking. But the two of us, I was like, no, we got to see if she's okay. My goodness. And we helped her up and they were trying to get her into an Uber home. But in general, people just walk on by. And you can be in the kookiest outfit. No one's really paying attention. And you can be your own self here in a way that I don't think you can be in many cities. I don't think so.
I feel like it's a very similar vibe in LA. So.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think people.
You think people just are oblivious, like walk on by, like when you go to the West Hollywood, the farmers market, it's like people just living their life, like do whatever you want. No one's paying attention.
We're in the land of influencers over here, so no one gives a shit if you have your camera out and you're like making content. Like,
okay, yeah, that's true. From what I've seen, when I walk by your place, you have that one wall there that has everybody's taking pictures and they're doing their thing. So it is very similar. I think the condensed amount of passerbyers on the street, because there's so many people walking around, maybe it's just more apparent here. So, but I do think native New Yorkers are so helpful, always willing to, if I stop and I ask somebody directions, I've never had a person just like ignore me. When I stop and ask people to film my TikToks for me, they're so nice. I haven't met anybody that's ever said no.
Yeah.
How could they say no? I'm like, could you film this for me? Oh my goodness. Anyway, so I do love the people of New York. And I think that it's a special breed of people that are willing. They get a bad rap in a lot of media, but in general, I think it's mostly good people. But the people that have become friendly with are also transplants, just because I know them from other places in my life. And then we've reconnected here. So, but it's also time factor. I'm in the city, I'm working, I have projects, and then I go out and I do my thing. I don't need a person to be with me to do things. I feel very comfortable going out and shopping by myself or going for a bike ride by myself. I don't feel like I need company all the time. I'm not that kind of person. So I haven't really seeked like, I need a friend, because I won't do this if I don't have a friend to do it with. I just feel like bonus. Now I have a friend living around the corner. That's nice. I have like different people I can get together with now. And it's like, oh, this is nice. So it's evolving. But the people are awesome. What's next on our list to discuss? I guess food. Well, I have food and culture. So let's talk, and we talked a little bit about culture, but first let's talk, I think, food, because it's your area that you love to curate, and you are very into finding the great places to eat, knowing where the best, whatever pastries are, things I barely pay attention to, but you really, really pay attention to it. So do you find there is a big difference in LA versus Chicago versus New York? Or do you find that these are three major cities with excellent food options? What would you say?
Okay. LA and New York are definitely probably on the same page of like, there's just so many places and you could go to a new restaurant every single day and like still not go to every single one before you die or whatever. Like there are so many places. And I think we've had really good food in LA, really good food in Chicago, really good food across all three cities. It's hard to say which one's my favorite food city. But we've been really like, not like happily surprised, but like honestly, happily surprised by like the food scene in LA, because there's been really a great range of food where there's like really good cheap eats, really good.
That's what I was going to ask you.
And really good, like expensive food. It's not like that's probably maybe the one thing, like in New York, it feels like everything is expensive. It's hard to find like cheap eats that aren't going to like ruin your stomach.
Right. I was actually going to ask you that very question. So I'm glad you addressed it.
I feel like there's a lot of good cheap eats in LA that are like some of the best food. Like some of our favorite foods are like the $2 taco stands that we get on the side of the road.
And I'm not eating at a $2 taco stand in New York. Not a chance in hell.
But there isn't even a $2 taco stand. That's the thing. It's like,
well, I'm not eating at the falafel stands either.
Well, those street hot dogs now are like $8.
Oh, that's true.
That it's even when the street hot dogs are expensive.
Oh my God.
That's how you know there's no good cheap food.
I stopped to get a water from one of those vendors, and I said, "Oh, can I have a bottle of water?" And he said, well, I thought he said $10. Honestly, he said 10. He just said it so fast. And I said, $10. And he goes, no, $2. But quite frankly, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was $10 for a bottle of water. Like, that's why I kind of did a double take, but I didn't do a double take like, hell no, forget it. I was really thirsty. So I probably would have paid $10 for the water. I might have gone to a deli at that point. It was just really funny because it wouldn't have surprised me if there was a bottle of water on the side of the road from a street vendor that was $10. So I guess that's the point. I'm so seasoned to knowing how much things are going to cost here. But I don't know of any like $2 tacos or cheap eats. But I'm sure if we did some digging and we said, oh, what's a good place? And we might be able to find it. Probably we could dig into TikTok and look for cheap eats in New York. And probably
I think it's just harder to find. It's right. I feel like all the places that blow up on TikTok or social media or the trendiest places, they're always expensive. Whereas here, a trendy, inexpensive place could blow up and be super popular.
Do you think it's because of the rents that they're paying in these shops? I mean, possibly because where are the cheap food in LA? Are they places where they could afford to do?
It's all over.
But it's like
I feel like it doesn't discriminate.
Okay.
I mean, the cheapest food are the street tacos where people are just post up on the sidewalk and like with their taco
So
truck.
they don't have any overhead, so they can charge cheap tacos.
Yeah,
but
we've
neither
still
do the
gone to
street vendors
places
in New
where,
York. They don't have overhead either. The street.
exactly.
All right. So let's move on from food. So we've got culture. Now let's talk about, I think, a difference in culture with LA to New York right off the bat.
Okay.
Not so much in Chicago, because I think Chicago has more of the art and theater thing. LA is going to be more, the way I see it from the outside, more touristy, like with Universal Studios and, Hollywood Studio, or going into Culver City. And the culture to me is more, do you think it's more movie based from being a city like that? I know there's museums, but there would be a museum where you'd go see, what's the one near you we were going to go see? It was like a motion picture museum or something like that. Like they're related, it's related to LA lifestyle versus just more general cultural things. Do you agree or disagree? I don't know. It's more like I'm asking the question than anything. I'm not really saying.
I guess I disagree. I mean, it seems like everything is just around Hollywood and entertainment, but there are really good art museums. They're really nice, like non-entertainment museums and cultural things to do.
Okay, so our goal, the next goal when I come out there is for us to do one of them.
You don't like museums, though.
I like museums. What do you mean? I just went to see an amazing art show at this. I do. I've crossed over. I didn't used to like museums when I was younger.
You like museums, you like to speed walk through them.
I don't. I see what I see and I like to keep on going.
We took you and Dad to the Getty, which is like a big museum in LA, and you both walk through. You don't even like look at the art. You're just like, cool. That was it. So that's why we never put museums on the itinerary when you come.
All right. I'll be a better museum patron in the future. But let's add that to the list for the next time. I think that would be fun. To pick one rather cultural thing. But like, for example, in New York, I recently went to a dance show. I took Aunt Catherine, actually. And it was the thing that I really love is the way I find out about these things. So for example, the woman that I met with the helmets on the side of the road, like amazing. And then I end up at her art show. It's so random. Now there's a maitre d' at a restaurant that we go to a lot in our neighborhood. And she would chitty chat all the time when I see her. And come to find out she's a dancer and she has a dance troupe. And I was like, oh, do you perform? And she said, oh yeah, we have a performance coming up. And the next thing you know, I'm at the maitre d's dance troupe's performance on the 13th floor of a building in a artist's living. What do they call it when it's an artist's residence where artists live together? I guess it's an artist residence. Anyway, so that's where this show was. So I think what I love is the spontaneous, random finds for cultural things, just that are in the most unexpected places, which one, it might be attributed to the fact that I chit chat with every single person, or I am open to learning about people. So I find out about these things. So it might be just me. You think so? It's more like me personally, because maybe another person wouldn't even know about it. But
because there's tons of that in LA. Everyone here doing something. Everyone's trying to be an actor or stand up.
So it's a matter of knowing and finding.
So it's a matter of knowing and talking. I don't think it's a matter of, I think that's happening in every city. I don't think that's just exclusive to New York. There's always things happening.
It's just about finding them.
Yeah.
Just like now that you're in the comedy scene, which is really cool. You are finding out more about these comedy things. And now because you're in the comedy scene, I'm way more tuned into the comedy scene in New York. So I recently went on one of the nights when I was here by myself, a friend of mine from TikTok, I found out he was performing at the Triad Theater where you performed. And I was like, oh, let me see if I can, find a friend to go with. And me and Megan went to see Ben Hawes. I'll give him a shout out here. I'll put him in the show notes. I'm going to put all the things we talked about, if I can remember, into the show notes. But Ben performed at the Triad Theater and he did musical comedy. And it was so interesting because it was a variety show. So it was a comedian, a musical comedian, and then a rapper, and then another band. So it was a different kind of show. And that, again, I would have never gone to that, except that he invited me from TikTok. I was like, oh, perfect time. I'm going to go see him perform in his show. It was so, so amazing. Super cool. And he's very funny. So I have visions of you and him performing a set together. Can we make this happen?
Sure.
You would be so complimentary because it's like, his vibe is so different than yours, but it's not vulgar humor. So it's like you both have like funny, relatable, feel good humor. And I like that. I don't like to go to where it's humor and people are making fun of people or putting people down or it's making people feel bad or it's like every other thing is like F this, F this, F this, F that. And like after a while, that just gets old.
Not funny. Yeah.
Not funny. Personal taste. Not for me.
All right. Should we
So I think
this up with
yes, I think we should wrap it up. And my final question I haven't asked any questions. So my question to end this episode is, Julie, where else, what other city or place would you want to live if you were not living in New York, LA, or Chicago? Well, if you're not living in LA and not choosing back to New York or Chicago, where else would you want to live?
That's the thing. Nowhere else in the United States.
Okay.
It'd have to be abroad.
All right.
But I feel like that is open. You know, it'd be cool to go back to Australia. I think it'd be cool to live in London or like a big European city. But in the United States, I feel like LA, New York, and Chicago are Stephen and I's like three main cities of like these are the places like we want to live. Or if we're rich enough, San Diego in a big house in La Jolla.
Sweet. I'm going to come and visit.
That's like, yeah. So we're not there yet, but yeah, the majority of our findings is that we are big city people.
All right. And you've covered the cities that you've wanted to live in the United States, which is pretty impressive for a 27-year-old.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Okay. Now I'm going to just throw in, would I want to live in another city? And I've given this some thought because I knew I was going to ask you the question. So I gave a minute of thought to it for myself. And I will honestly say that I will always want to be based in New York City. That's where, so I don't mind if I was going to say for a month in the winter, we'll come to San Diego and live in La Jolla on a big house on the hill. We'll find something nice. But I like the idea of maybe living abroad in Paris for a month at some point in my life, or picking a city in Italy or a little quaint countryside in Italy. But I don't ever want to live there and move, say, uproot, move there for a year and move my belongings and move my life. It doesn't interest me at this point. And it's more for me about travel and experience, and maybe experience for a longer than a week vacation. That would be appealing to me. But home is here in New York City now, the Big Apple, baby. And that's it.
We know this could have been a whole ad for New York. That's just how you and Dad how everyone talks about New York. It's like a big ad. You didn't touch on any of the negatives.
Oh my God. I have a couple of negatives, but I'm not going to end with them.
I know.
I was staying on up note. And the negatives are so temporary, and they're so just based on, oh, that happened. That's so annoying. And then I just move on and I only see the good things. So let's just keep our rose-colored glasses on. At least I'm going to keep mine on for New York City. All right.
I'll let you.
Thank you. Yours truly,
Helen and Julie.
If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a comment. I've put a lot of things in the show notes below, so feel free to read, click, and experience some of the things I was talking about in the episode and some of the things Julie mentioned. And you know where to find us on our social media. That's at The Mothership with a U. For me and for Julie, it's at Julie Polisi, and that's without an E, so JuliPolise. Together, we are HelloSocialize.com, serving up the weekly creative forecast, which has really done a number recently because we have released our beginner TikTok course, and that course now has grown our email list exponentially, and it's so exciting. It's also a thing that we do 2 times a week now, where we send out trends, updates, content ideas, music suggestions, and updates, and we take questions and we answer those questions in the Friday issue. So I'm loving it, Julie's loving it, and we are excited to bring that to you every week. Do you have anything to add, Julie?
If there are any questions, I still want to do a listener's question episode, so submit those to either of us on Instagram.
Yes,
please.
And together we are yours truly the podcast on Instagram, so you can drop your questions there. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.